Alright, and welcome back for our first test match with Mono Green Stompy. I'm going to keep this hand. Although, yes, it's only got one land. It's got a good one drop, and then it has a Kieran Ranger to act like it's a second land. Depending on what my opponent's playing, I might not go Kieran Ranger turn 1 if I think that it's going to easily be killed. So, plains. Okay, that could indicate Coldotha Boros or White Weenie of some kind of a bad draw. I'm just going to go Kieran Ranger here. I think with Plains turn 1, there might be a good chance that my Kieran Ranger will live. So hopefully that's true. And then we'll be able to go Nest Invader into Bone Splitter if I want to. So that would be fun. Oh. Might be tokens. Might be tokens. Yeah. Tokens is fun to play against, I guess. Not really. No, it's Slivers! And my opponent has Sunlance. Well, crap. Alright. Metal Sentinel go. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to go Kieran Ranger, is because people will always look to kill the Kieran Ranger first. And I could have gone Young Wolf, play Kieran Ranger, and then left up Vines of Vastwood. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, never mind, I don't know what deck this is. In a white deck, when your opponent goes Plains turn 1, you're not really thinking about Sunlance on turn 1. So, that is just not really something that I'm thinking about. But, might lose the game because of that. So that's always fun. But, such is life. I think here I'd rather just go Young Wolf than go Ranker. I don't think Ranker is going to be as good as just getting another creature onto the board, so we'll see how that works out for me. This is around the time you know you're getting screwed. Augur of Bolas actually found a spell. It's not supposed to do that. Augur of Bolas, in my opinion, is one of the worst Magic cards ever. Why? Because 9 out of 10 times when I personally play this card, it's literally, when Augur of Bolas enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Rearrange them in any order you'd like, and put them on the bottom. That is literally what this card is. Screw you. Okay, so that's 2 Sunlances. Riverboa seems like it's going to be pretty important to winning this match because of Island Walk. So I think here what I'm going to do is, unfortunately I can't go Nest Invader into Ranker. What I could do is I can go Ranker on my Young Wolf, but then I can't get another creature onto the board. So I'm just going to play Nest Invader. And then I'm not going to sack the token, because what this allows me to do is that if I don't draw land, I can go Riverboa with using the token, so I can leave a green up. Or I could leave up Vines of Vastwood in case my opponent goes Journey to Nowhere. Or Oblivion Ring, anything of that aspect. I am not going to attack with Young Wolf. I don't just want to throw it away. And Bone Splinter... Why do I always call it Bone Splinter? Bone Splitter can be used... at some other point. Looks like my opponent's on some kind of Bant control deck. Here comes a Mole Drifter, I assume. That's usually what 5 drops are. Yep. And it also looks like my opponent has at least 1 land in hand because they did play that Blossoming Sands. Okay, so I did draw a Forest. So that's actually really good now. Now what I can do if I want is I can play Riverboa and I can Epic Confrontation the Mole Drifter away with the Nest Invader, but I don't really see the point in that. So here I'm just going to play the Riverboa, and I'm going to sack the token to do that, because I'm also going to put Ranker on the Riverboa while I get the chance. Basically, I want to utilize all of my mana while I can. I could run a Nest Invader to see if my opponent wants to trade, but there's no point in that. I don't really want to lose my Nest Invader for what is really no reason. So my opponent will need 2 types of removal spells to kill my Riverboa. Okay, so now I don't know any of the cards in my opponent's hand. I do not have any type of information whatsoever. Main deck Lone Missionary. Oh, I guess it's a Blink deck. Cool. Thank God Mystic Snake's not a common. So yeah, I did record one other match before this, but I decided that it wasn't very interesting. The main reason for that, really the only reason, is because it was the Stompy mirror, and it wasn't very interesting at all. Uh, it really just was not interesting. What is this? Basic land cycling on main phase? Oh, he's gonna ponder again, or she's gonna ponder again. I don't know what my opponent is. I'm just gonna say he because it's a guy avatar. Another island. So my opponent is favoring blue over anything else. My opponent have a ponder. Yep. Opponent might be lagging. Because they took like an extra second to do that. Shoo. Alright, oh, let's see, I guess, what they did with the ponder. They did choose to shuffle this time, so that's good for me. Attacking with the Mole Drifter. Okay. That's interesting. Another force. That's actually really good. So now what I can do is I can play Bone Splitter. I can put Bone Splitter on the Riverbow, and I can attack for a nice juicy 6. And my opponent is on a 3-turn clock, considering I have Vines of Vastwood in my hand. Go ahead and attack for 6. Gotta take advantage of that island. Not really gonna do anything else. Nest Invader's main job right now is to block the Augur Bolus. This guy's main job is to... I'm gonna turn off auto yields just in case. Is to block the Lone Missionary. Oh, my opponent plays second island. They did play the other island, so now I, again, do not have perfect information. One cool trick is when or if my opponent goes for a momentary blink the first time, I can Vines of the Vastwood whatever creature they so choose, whether it's Mole Drifter or Lone Missionary with Vines of Vastwood. Because remember, this says target creature can't be the targets of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. So technically this is actually a counterspell in that retrospect. Okay, another forest. Not really looking too good here. I kind of want to use this Epic Confrontation, but then I don't really want to. But I kind of do. And then I kind of don't. See, the problem with this with this particular Epic Confrontation is that if my opponent has a momentary blink, it's just not really going to work out for me. And the other thing is, if my opponent has a counter spell, doesn't really do anything. Not to mention, well, I guess there's really no point in not trying it, but I suppose the other thing is if I attack for 6 and put my opponent to 12, any pump spell away from winning the game, technically. Of course, my opponent could always blink the Lone Missionary and live, as long as they need to. That's something. I'm actually quite flooded. If these two were 2 more spells, I'd be in much better shape. Although, the 4th land really did help at one point, so that is something to keep in mind. So, if this was a spell, I might be a little farther ahead. But, yeah. I guess I can just force the issue. There's really no point in me not. Oh, wow, my opponent didn't have anything. Okay. Or my opponent maybe just clicked a little fast there. Or they have 6. I'm really not sure of which one. So I'm going to attack with the Nest Invader here. I mean, if my opponent has momentary blink, they can blink the Mole Drifter to untap it to block and then blink it again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. They would have to tap out for that, of course, though. I could also attack with the Young Wolf to make it a 2-2. That's probably better. I think any extra damage I get in at this point to lessen my opponent's clock, or to up my opponent's clock maybe, is probably better. Okay, so is that them throwing away the Augur Bolus, or... No, they're going to blink the Augur. They're going to... Oh, it's Alex Ullman's deck. I actually just found this deck earlier today. Alright, well, I'm going to Vines here. See if my opponent has anything to say about it. I don't know what the hell this is. Okay. Okay, sheer drop. Without the awaken. So my opponent's leaving up 4 mana. Oh, they're playing something else. They're playing a journey? No. Archaeomancer. Probably to get back Sunlance, I would assume. Or Ponder, maybe. Or they can get back the other sheer drop. I suppose that's also a something they could do. I'm just gonna wait to see what they do. Okay, they got back Dramatic Rescue again. So I guess that's kind of like gaining almost infinite life in that respect, which is kind of cute. But how did my opponent gain so much life? Weren't they? Oh no, because this didn't actually deal any damage. I'm an idiot. Right. That's not a bad draw. So let's get in for 3. You really want to differentiate your damage when it comes to things like this, because you want to spread your opponent's answers as thin as possible. You'd rather have 3 3/3s rather than one creature that's 9 power, I guess, so to speak. So I'll play the Riverbow. Now the question is, what creature do I put the Rancor on? I think I'm going to put the Rancor on the Burning Tree Emissary. The reason for that is, why I'm doing it now, of course, is I don't want this to get bounced. In response, I don't want the Rancor to get countered. But also because Riverbow is going to get in no matter what, while my opponent might have to block the Burning Tree Emissary. And also this way my opponent can't go block. Chose not to shuffle. Well, pretty dead. Pretty dead. Pitskulk. Oh, Pitskulk's pretty good too, I suppose, actually. Especially with Bone Splitter. Bone Splitter's another reason I like... I'm sorry. Pitskulk's another reason I like Bone Splitter in this deck, because it's another Rancor effect, kind of, to attach to Pitskulk. So that's something to keep in mind. Alright. So, gonna block and bounce the... What the hell is this? What is 6 mana? Capsize... Does my opponent know he's still gonna take 4? Maybe not. Alright. My opponent was better off capsizing something else there, but... Fair enough. That was a foily capsize, too. My opponent's a baller. Okay, well... My opponent can play Archaeomancer, get back Sheer Drop, and Sheer Drop away this guy, but then they would have to tap out... suppose... I think what the problem with my opponent's hand is their spells might cost too much. And that, again, that is something that Stompy takes advantage of, is Stompy can just go wide and spread the love all across the board. And it takes real advantage of a lot of greedy mana decks that aren't Tron. Even against Tron. Because while you have all this mana to use with Tron, as you've seen when I... Oh, excuse me. When I play Tron or when somebody else plays Tron, you're restricted by colors. You know, so a Tron deck might have all the mana in the world, but they might only be able to play actually 2 spells a turn. Same thing with that deck. Same thing with, like, I don't know, another big mana deck is. That's the reason why people usually play decks with the cheaper spells, like Holdotha Affinity, I guess, is kind of a good example, because they play a bunch of cheap spells, because, you know, Affinity, and things like that. Stompy is built to really, you know, destroy greed, I suppose. Alright, anyway, so... Bant. I'm kind of pre-sideboarded against this deck already, aren't I? They didn't play any enchantments. They're not burn. Actually, longbow seems really good. Longbow over... Maybe immunogenic growth? Maybe immunogenic growth doesn't really seem all that important. I guess Volt Scourge is not at its finest, but it is a flyer, and if my opponent's only flyer is a Mole Drifter, that's probably my best bet, so... We'll just bring that in. I did see Lone Missionary, so you could be saying, why aren't you bringing in Gut Shot, but if that's the only target for Gut Shot, it doesn't send. I guess we'll find out. Let's go ahead and attack for 1. Since I drew Skargan Pit Skulk, we'll be able to play said Pit Skulk. And my opponent will not be able to Condescend it. See if they run Counterspell. Decks like this don't... It's a dime a dozen whether or not they run Counterspell or not. They could, they don't, they might not. They could run Remove Soul, you know, etc., etc. Essence Scatter. Okay, well, kind of like Remove Soul. Kind of the same thing, right? Not really. It's not really the same thing at all. Remove Soul looks cool. This just looks... I mean, it's a dude being torn up by birds, right? So it's kind of like really depressing, or at least that's what it looks like. I don't know what it looks like anymore. Sunlance on my Kieran Ranger. Okay, could have just done that ahead of time. Alright, well, I'm going to attack for 1, play Kieran Ranger, untap my Young Wolf, replay the land, and keep up Hunger the Howl Pack or Vine's Vastwood. I'm not going to run Rancor out there. I'd rather play the Kieran Ranger and keep the Kieran Ranger in play because I really could use 3 mana right now. Being able to Epic Confrontation plus Rancor, Hunger the Howl Pack plus, you know, all this stuff, I think would be a lot better. To play. Okay. They did not leave up the 2 mana bounce spell, although I don't know if my opponent plays Repeal or anything like that, but I think I'm going to go for it anyway. I'm going to put Rancor on Young Wolf. The reason why is if my opponent's going to kill the creature with Rancor on it, like Sunlance or something, like that, well, I could put Hunger of the Howl Pack counter on instead of using Vines. Yeah, that seems better, because my opponent probably has so many bounce spells in their deck that that's probably just better. And then I do actually get in more damage this turn as well. Now, what sucks is, if my opponent kills this with Sunlance, it's not coming back. But, what are you going to do? And I'm going to attack first with only 1 green up. There's no Dismember-like trick, from what I know, in Pauper. So I'm not going to worry about that. Going to go ahead and do this. Now, I could play the Nettle Sentinel, or I could keep the Vines. So I'm going to play Nettle Sentinel, because my opponent does have a Sunlance. They kill my Young Wolf. Nothing I can do about it. But I have the same amount of damage going on with Nettle Sentinel here, so that's something to keep in mind. Lone Missionary. Okay. Gain your 4 life. Another Ponder. Alrighty. See what my opponent does with it. This deck's pretty cool. I don't know, I'm a sucker for band strategies for some reason. I love band. Chose not to shuffle and plays an island. So opponent could have a bounce spell. Ooh, a Volt Scourge. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to float a mana, and I'm going to untap something. And I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to Epic Confrontation using the Nettle Sentinel with the Lone Missionary. Now, why am I doing it this way? The reason is it plays around Condescend, and if my opponent's going to bounce the Lone Missionary or my Nettle Sentinel, I Vines the Vastwood up to do it. Looks like my opponent did not have anything. So we're going to get in for 8 damage here. And then I'm going to be able to play the Volt Scourge. I'm not scared of Electrickery from this deck. I don't think that this deck is splashing red. So I'm just not gonna worry about that. If my opponent has a Condescend for this Volt Scourge, more than welcome. I'd rather them counter that than counter Vines the Vastwood. Since they already know what's coming too, they might not want to scry away as well, so. Oh, looks like here's a Mole Drifter that they're tapping out for, which is good for me. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I do actually have lethal with this Vines, and now I have insurance with this Viridian Longbow. So I can play the Longbow for free. I can then untap this Nettle Sentinel. I can then play this Forest, and I can attack. If they block... Nope, I actually have lethal no matter what. No matter which creature they block, I actually have lethal because the Young Wolf has Trample. So even if they block the Young Wolf, they're still going to take 2, 4, 6, 10. So that is GG's. You kind of saw how this deck can really overwhelm any opponent, really. Well, you know, it's fun. Like, a lot of people probably wonder, why is this deck so good against Delver when Delver has so many counterspells? The reason why is Delver can play a limited number of... Actually, hold on a second. Delver can only play like a limited number of spells. So, let's say you have 3 mana. Delver has 2 mana. Well, sure. You could... let's say you play a Nettle Sentinel. Let's say you play Nettle Sentinel or a Skargan Pitskulk and they counter it. Okay. With a Spellstorm Sprite. Sure. So now they gotten one over on you. Now they have a creature in play that they can attack with every turn and you lost a dude. But, let's say they don't have a Daze. Well, you could easily just go Burn Tree Emissary into Emissary into River Boa. You could just go Emissary into River Boa. You could just play 2 more 1-drops. The fact of the matter is, this deck can put things onto the battlefield faster than Delver can counter you. And Delver doesn't have any kill spells past Curse of Chains or Serrated Arrows or Coronet or anything like that, especially game 1. So, whatever you stick in play is usually going to be stuck in play. And your creatures are going to be bigger than theirs with the help of Bone Splitter, Mine's Vastwood, Rancor, you know, Hunger, Mutagenic Growth, and Epic Confrontation's also one of the new bad boys because you get to kill Spire Golem with this. It's actually pretty easy. But, also, this combo is just dirty. I'm just going to point that out. So, that was our first test match. You really kind of saw how this deck functions with Epic Confrontation. You saw how this deck functions with the new Burn Tree Emissary, getting to play 2 creatures out, overwhelming my opponent there in game 1. Alright, so I'll see you back for game match number 2. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.